Hello, everybody. Today, I will present my research collaborated with Mr. Dongin, Dr. Minsu, Dr. Kyung-Taek, and also Dr. Kyoung-Chul Kim, which is about scenario-based urban development strategies in North Korea. What the next after COVID-19? This research actually conducted last year, and I really appreciate for Doctors Chang'un Park and To-Hyung Kim, who really contributed to creating the results of this presentation. Actually, the study purpose is to conduct pilot research toward inaccessible areas located on the Korean Peninsula, which is actually in the North Korea, and this study actually applied simulation scenarios to get the results. So by constructing economy-based land use modeling, this study focused on collecting secondary geospatial data sets along with future population and economic changes, which was estimated from a flexible input-output model. By selecting Dancheon City in North Korea, two economic scenarios could be developed. And also for the land use modeling, we actually applied infill and sprawl type land use development scenarios, which were also additionally applied to each economic scenario. So we could make 4 scenarios to simulate our scenarios. Especially changes in population and employment stemming from urban growth can lead to changes in population and job locations. This could be allocated using a land use type modeling approach. So we developed a 3D type GIS tool, and therefore we could visualize where the new residential and non-residential buildings could be located. So finally, one important issues of this study, we may advance economic scenarios where COVID-19 impact can be added to the current scenarios. So later we will see that, but because COVID-19 scenarios require global trade pattern estimates, including the trade information associated with China and Russia, this study may need to include more global trade information. So we will pursue this one later. So this is sort of a brief abstract of this study. So I will briefly talk about the details of this study where I visualize the maps. So as I told you, the purpose of this study is to conduct a pilot study toward inaccessible areas, especially located on North Korea. And also to do so, actually we developed the simulation scenarios, and these will focus on future economic demand information and also secondary geospatial data sets, and also population and job locations along with the urban growth. And also we actually developed the online platform that provides research communication. So using geoprocessing tools in QGIS and digital topographic maps, we could collect and standardize spatial and geographical information on the target area, which is currently Dancheon City in North Korea. The spatial information was actually collected from various maps available in National Geographic Information Service in South Korea, and also North Korea Information Portal, and also Google Map. We actually applied quantitative indices which could provide strategic directions of population and job locations for the Dancheon City growth simulation. Also, we actually developed an online platform that will provide advanced simulation results and users analysis in that platform. So in the process, as I told you, the first step is to digitalization of the data and the standardization of the data. So using the spatial data collection of the inaccessible areas on the North Korea, area, in the step 2, we could build scenarios which is needed for the simulations. So we could construct the secondary data sets about population, economies, and industrial development progress that are used for economic growth scenarios, where we applied flex input-output approach. In step 3, we could develop online platform which provide advanced simulation results, especially visualization of our analysis. So you can see the results later based on our infill and the suprol scenarios, and which was actually visualized on the map. So the applied approaches could include the data collection, quantitatively and qualitatively. Most are spatial information and digital topographic maps. And also we applied the QGIS, where multi-layers could be integrated into one. And we overlaid using geoprotocol tools, and we could develop a sort of a web-based GIS using Python and QGIS, which will provide user-friendly WebGIS library. Therefore, we could visualize and secure WebGIS. Third one is that we actually developed a scenario-based land use modeling, and then 3D allocation system, which will be applied for strategic simulations to develop the Dancheon city. We are actually targeted as a pilot study. Also, to simulate the economic growth, we actually apply the flexible input-output approach, which is about a general equilibrium approach that considers both the supply and demand size. So flex IOs could allow various changes in either coefficients. So targeting on the specific future time, like the 2025, we could predict how the economic systems could change. So part 1 is that the building basic database of GIS data sets. So if you see here in the below, we could collect spatial information and digital topographic maps on Dancheon City, collected from maps of National Geographic Information Service. And then we could transfer the code to be matched to the current available maps obtained from the North Korea, the portal. So if you see here type, which is about general houses, apartments, and non-residential buildings, lower buildings, greenhouse, buildings under construction, and total. So we could get obtain those information. And also in terms of the purpose, which is about the housing, which is about neighborhood living facilities or selling facilities, medical purpose, education, and research stuffs, and so on. We could obtain also those the building information, and we could construct the database using those the data categories. Part 2, first we could collect topological spatial information of Dancheon City, and where total 41 layers, including building layer, into one layer. So if you see here, polygon, which is 18, line, which is 15, and point, which is 8. So we could get those things into one layer. Second part in part 2 is that the topological spatial information of Dancheon City should be an integrated layer using geoprocessing tools. So we could make this one map. So this is the second process of the part 2. And part 3 is about the WebGIS construction. So first one in part 3 is to develop WebGIS near the Dancheon port area. So if you see here, we could construct this one. And in the part, of the part 3, which is about the WebGIS, but building and transportation facility layers near Dancheon Port. So we could obtain this one. And the third part of the part 3 is that the individual building information that should be verified. So we could double check using the GIS process. And part 3-4, we could also construct the status of each layer, activated or non-activated. So we could double check whether this is available. And finally, in the part 3, we could build GIS for inaccessible areas on the North Korea area, especially main infrastructure facilities and special economic zones. So if you see here, this is the infrastructure like the rail lines and special economic zones and many other the information is currently updated on this WebGIS. In part 4, we actually could develop an economy-based land use model, which is applied for scenario-based simulation. So we could obtain the results where we could develop Dancheon City's input-output model. So we first construct Dancheon City's input-output model using 1980s Korean input-output matrix, which was actually available at the Bank of Korea. So this Dancheon IO targeted the year of 2025 as a reference year, which were constructed by combining two economic scenarios. So we developed the first scenario, which is base scenario. So using OECD's South Korea's GDP growth rate from 2020 to 2025, the average growth rate, which is in the range of 2 to 3% increase without being affected by the COVID-19. So we applied this the growth rate to North Korea's 2025 GDP and household expenditure by industry type. Second scenario is that we assume a little bit high growth in the mining related industries. So in addition to the scenario 1, some industries could grow more, where we assume that mining will be 20% increase more, and coal and petroleum products, non-metallic minerals, and primary metal products will be increased 15% respectively. And transportation sector will increase by 10%. So that was another scenario that we developed. So based on this first base scenario and the second high growth scenario, we could construct two types of Dancheon's 2025 input-output, which is demand-driven model. And the sample here is about the scenario for the base scenario. And we then estimate the job impacts of Dancheon City. So Dancheon City's the job impacts obtained from those Dancheon's IO. We applied Bank of Korea's 2018 employment coefficient, which estimated the number of jobs in Dancheon City targeting to 2025 by each economic scenario. So the ratio of GDP to final demand in South Korea has been applied to North Korea's GDP. Final demand of Dancheon City and the number of jobs could be estimated. Also, we assume that population could increase from this job creation. So using South Korea's 1980 population and job information, which is similar to the current North Korea, especially Dancheon areas economic situation, because we could not obtain the actual number due to the limitation in accessing to North Korea's job information. We applied the ratio of South Korea, which is pop over job in 1980s, which is a little bit about 3.575, and then we round up, and then we apply just a fourth using the rounding assumption. Then the job impact by industry sectors, which is 30, and you can see here by code type and industry the unit is per person, and about the scenario 1 and scenario 2. Scenario 2, as I told you, that a little bit high growth, and then it shows that a little bit higher the total job creation by 100. So we could see that this job creation or increase in number of the employment, then we could estimate the number of population increase, then that was applied. So it appears here, Tancheon City is land use change scenarios, which is about the increase in population, about the max population and minimum population. So max population is 2,325, minimum is about 2,000. So we applied the infill scenarios and sprawl scenarios. So we have actually 4 type of scenarios, and then the increase in building for a residential area and one non-residential area is actually divided. So based on the population, we could develop the increase in building. So for the max case in infill will be about 321, but the sprawl for the max case will be 890 in total. So in the sprawl case, we could see that more buildings will be constructed. And another interesting point is here in infill case, for the minimum, the total increase in building would be 250 about, but the sprawl case, the minimum case, even though it is there's a big difference in population, but in number of building, the difference is just about 180. So relatively, the sprawl case could increase or construct more buildings, especially for the non-residential area. So we will see this result in terms of the 3D maps. So if you see here legend, you can target on orange color and purple color. The orange color is about new residential buildings with scenarios, and also purple is about new non-residential buildings with scenarios. And just yellow and gray is currently existing residential and non-residential buildings respectively. So in the first Tancheon City's land use change scenarios for the entire Tancheon area, and the most is currently existing buildings. So we could see this map, and then where if we apply the first scenario, which is about infill and max population, the left one shows that the entire Tancheon area, and then you can see that the orange color appear some core cities. So if we zoom in, then the vacant land areas can be shown where the orange color appear, and also in the right case, also the vacant area near the existing area could be constructed. So we can see diverse core city could construct the reuse some buildings for the scenarios 1, which is infill and max population. So reconstruction actually conducted, and new residential buildings, and also the new non-residential buildings could be constructed. So if you see here scenario 2, which is infill and minimum population, then entire Tancheon area, and also if it goes to the core city, some residential area more highlighted. This is similar to the first scenario. However, due to minimal population increase, it is a little bit smaller in terms of the number of new buildings. So if we apply the scenario 3, which is about the sprawl, for the first max population, the entire Tancheon area on the left side, you can see some orange colors for the new residential buildings. So if we go to the zoom in to the vacant area, but this is actually located between Tancheon Port and Tancheon Station. So it is expected to appear around the areas where the current existing rail line passes, and the road point where the bus route appears. So if you go to the right side, we can see follow the near that the bus route. There's some new buildings highlighted with orange color, and purple lines, especially purple lines is a little bit higher building, is currently shown. So similarly, if we apply the minimum population, even though there are population differences, however, the building patterns is much similar, and the more, in terms of the relative the values, more buildings actually appeared relatively high in this scenario 4. And if you go see the right side, the higher the non-residential buildings are currently appearing, they're just along with the bus route. And this will be really important for and useful for planning for the Dancheon area. So finally, the implications toward the currently experienced COVID-19. So we know that COVID-19 scenario, because the COVID-19 actually affect globally, and the global economy could be really dropped down during the February, about the January 2020 to May 2020. However, it is a little bit recovered starting from June 2020, and then slowly is currently recovering. So how to reflect this type of decrease and increase back, a resilient effect to the Dancheon city, because Dancheon city actually scenarios developed based on the OECD's the scenario, which was not which didn't account for the COVID-19 impact when we studied. So that is an issue. So it is very important in advancing scenarios. So it is needed to advance the COVID-19 experience to the current scenarios. So by adding COVID-19 scenarios, we require global trade pattern update, including the trade with China and Russia. So the benefit of this simulation approach is to prepare the unexpected experience resulted from the COVID-19, such like that, and then we can visualize the outcomes. So I hope, and also our the scholars really hope this result will be really applicable to your research, and we really appreciate if you can follow our study, or if you need any kind of information from this study, we will be happy to support your research. So thank you so much, and I hope to continue our work in the discussion session. Thank you. Bye-bye.